Okay. So, run it by me again. You're thinking of having a podcast, right? But maybe you don't know how to start a podcast, or maybe you don't know what platform to be on. I know. There's a lot. But maybe you also don't know what kind of budget you'll need, right? Okay. Well, how about this? 216 Creator Studios. Ring a bell? Okay, well, here. There you can buy a pre-built show. Or, better yet, you can build your own show. Have all the creativity in the world. And the best part about that, it can be all done within your budget. So, no worries. How about this? Start here. Just go to 216creatorstudios.com. And I guarantee you, they will help you find your voice.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Roger That Chronicles. You know who I am. I am Cappuccino behind the machine here, behind the camera. Hey, listen, if you like what you see here today, don't forget to go to the old Google box there, YouTube. Hit that live tab for 216 Creator Studios. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and ding that bell for future notifications. Chris, always a great time. Today we are live.
We are.
I know. This is exciting. And so, I think today we are boots on the ground, and I got the definition to that today from Coach. Coach, what's up, buddy? Good to see you, man. And so, a lot of great stories coming in today. Today we have a mom for the U.S. Marines and all Army. So you're surrounded for sure.
And it's already getting pretty thick here.
That's awesome.
Our condolences.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you take it from here and let you go around the table there and do the introductions you got to do here. Is there anything you want to say in the beginning? I'm going to hot swap our mics today, just like we did last round.
Yep, I'll
So
go ahead and give you some time by talking. So we're thankful to be here. Thank you guys for coming. My name is Chris with New Life Ministry and Outreach, or NLMNO, and we equip and empower our veterans using a progressive and proactive approach. So today we do have all kinds of Army veterans with us today. So we've got Tim, our co-host here, and we've got Nick over here, and we've got Jim. So I'll just start with you, Jim. We'll just go around the room. Perfect. Go ahead and share, your rank, what you did, just a little bit about your time in the Army.
Okay. My name's Jim McGee. I served with the Army in I went to Vietnam in 1970 and was assigned to the 173rd Airborne because I was a jump qualified paratrooper. The whole unit was that way. Sergeant E5. My job there, my MOS technically was 11 Charlie Papa, 11 being infantry, Charlie being mortars. Papa means a jump unit, jump qualified. Gosh, what else? That's about it.
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Good. How can I follow that up? But I'll try. Nick Oliver with U.S. Army. I think I did 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. I forget a lot. But it was with 56 Mike. There's a chaplain assistant. I think it's called a religious specialist or something now. But went to Iraq and a little bit of Afghanistan. Just had fun with under 11th Aviation or the Unit 66 Cavalry. So with some Apache units, which is actually quite fun to watch those flying around. Mm-hmm. So shout out to any pilots out there listening. So I think I spent the rest of my time in Texas actually after that. So
What part in Texas?
Fort Bliss, so El Paso, so
Okay.
the edge. I was almost New Mexico.
How can anything in Texas be bliss?
Maybe
Should go visit. Yeah.
I've been there.
You saw the
I
the
agree.
plaque,
I
right?
agree with you.
Tim Stewart. I grew up on a farm in Nebraska. At 18, I joined the United States Army as a military policeman. I spent 3 years on active duty, got off active duty, stayed in the 863rd Engineering Battalion for 3 years. After my 6 years initial commitment was done, I was happy to move away. After a year and a half, I was like, I miss this. So I came back into the Woodstock National Guard unit. I just went down to check it out and found out it was an infantry unit. Well, I spent my first 3 years arresting those guys. So I thought, well, is there any other slots you have? And he said, well, yeah, the combat medic slot's open.
Oh, wow.
Combat medic.
Mhm.
So I became the combat medic. I got to put them back together.
Mhm.
And being National Guard, they were always getting paper cuts and other things. At my first annual training, the first sergeant and I did not get along very well, and he did everything he could to like get me out of his sight. So he sent me to battalion for a mandatory class. Each company had to send 2 people. Well, I was on OCS, the
Okay.
Officer Candidate School. And I had the offer in basic training in 1973 to go directly to OCS, and I turned it down. And thought, well, maybe this is a second chance. So I started that whole process and eventually entered the Officer Candidate School in 1984. 216 people started. 68 made it through the first weekend.
Wow.
16 graduated.
Wow.
And I was the distinguished graduate out of that class. So they invited me back as a senior tactic. So I was the senior drill instructor for OCS for 2 years. And then a scout platoon, a infantry platoon, executive officer, eventually infantry platoon company commander, a stint at Brigade in the S3 training session, a stint at Battalion as the S4 logistics officer. And then I got another company command and retired with 21 years of service. So had a lot of fun. Every soldier I trained, because they went, I didn't. They came home alive, and that told me I did my job. So, and that little medic I met in 1974, April 11th will be our 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'll hit that mark June 14th.
Flag Day.
Yes. Yeah. It was. My detailed thing is that in 1968, I got a card in the mail. And it said, come on down, we'd like to give you a physical. And I knew what was happening. I didn't have a draft number at that time. And so after that card came, about a week later, I got another card from the recruiter in town who, I went in and he said, we have a special deal for you.
Have we got a deal for
Yeah.
you?
That's right.
That starts.
Oh, wait, there's more.
It was interesting. Usually, if you enlist, it's 3 years. If you get drafted, it's 2. And here I am with the recruiter, so it meant I was enlisting. But the special deal was, we have a 2-year enlistment, and you can choose whatever you want to do. So I said, we'll see. Technical things, rockets these days. I want to do something like that. And so I went in. January 30th or 31st, 1969, and went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and of course the 82nd Airborne is at Fort. They don't call it Fort Bragg anymore, unfortunately. I call it Fort Bragg.
It's going back to Fort Bragg, actually.
That's smart. Those guys, there's no way those airborne paratroopers are going to say, I'm from,
Camp Liberty.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They don't want liberty, they want action. So there are a lot of airborne stuff going on. Well, we had a battalion assembly, and on a hill, and they had the Golden Knights in a presentation. And man, I was licking my chops. I was so excited. I wanted to be a U.S. paratrooper. And so I went down, signed up, which also meant I was going to be in the infantry. Goodbye rockets, but I didn't care. I actually wanted to go to Vietnam for all the reasons that a lot of guys went. And so I knew that would happen. Then I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, near Augusta, Georgia, to do mortars training. And then I heard about jump school. Well, I already signed up for jump school. So I went to jump school, and then I heard about NCOS. Okay. So non-commissioned officers candidate school. And because you get more rank and more privileges, more money. Well, that all sounded better. So I went through the 3 phases of that, ended up going, and that was, of course, at Fort Benning, Georgia, along with jump school. And then one of the phases was an on-the-job training phase for a platoon that was basic platoon. No, it was an MOS at Fort Polk, Louisiana, Tiger Land, a training ground for soldiers heading for Vietnam. And finished that there, and then was stuck there for a while, but I finally got orders for Nam. And didn't even have a year left. It was more like 10 months or so. I showed up and was assigned to the 173rd Airborne, which I was just pleased as punch. And I considered OCS. But I only had 2 years, and I didn't want to listen another year. Jim, we got a deal for you. And then, so I spent my time there. When you said combat medic,
Right.
I have a lot of respect for them, because in my tour there, I was assigned as a forward observer, because being Mortars MOS, I was assigned to a 4-deuce, 4.2-inch mortar platoon on the hill at LZ Uplift in Nam. And so, but they needed forward observers for the rifle companies. And so rather than working on the mortars, I was assigned to a rifle company to do forward observing, in other words, calling in and adjusting fire, etc. The first company I was with, the company commander was from West Point, and just being with this guy, you'd want to follow him, whatever. There's something about the essence of leadership that was coming out of this guy is really cool. And but shortly, I've been with the unit for out in the field, at least a couple of weeks or so. But then we had an incident where the guy we were being resupplied on a hilltop. Chopper was hovering. We were getting away from it, but there's a guy right behind me stepped on something, blew his foot off, and I got hit. He got hit, and my RTO got hit. And so I was a month in the hospital, and that's why I say
An RTO is a radio telephone operator.
Yes.
That was the guy, communication guy.
Exactly. Yeah. I bless him, because he carried the radio.
Right.
Pick 25 was heavy. I had to do it for a little while. I was so happy to see this guy show up. I felt sorry for him because he wasn't very big. I mean, he was a small guy. But okay, so I go to Quin Yon Hospital and for a month. And so I got out of there, went back to the Echo Company, which is mortars and anyways, that was the company I was with. And then I was assigned again to another rifle company, Charlie and Alpha. And let's see, well, some of the leadership wasn't as good. You could tell the difference between night and day. They had a guy that was gung-ho and really ignorant, and he got us into some trouble because sometimes you make mistakes in combat. And so I got hit by frags again. And so that's why I love combat medics and medevac choppers. Music to my ears. So they threw me in a chopper. I went to Quinlan Hospital for another month. And when I got out there, they put me in charge of our direction, and which was, I think, about January and of 71, and it was time for me to go home. So that's what I did.
I went in right at the end of actually, the day I signed was December 9th, 1972, which was the date of the Vietnam Peace Treaty. I entered into the delayed entry program on April 9th, and then basic training was in September of 73. So I was like right after you. I was cleaning up all your messes.
Yeah. We did make some.
He made a statement, we call it the Prick 25. Everything in the Army is acronyms. PRC meant personal radio carry device. It's all simple. It was actually ANPRC.
Right.
Army and Navy used the same radio system, but they were so heavy, you had to have a specific person just designed to carry that so that you could do your mission.
Yeah.
So I, as a company commander, platoon leader, I always had an RTO. And
A couple of them, probably.
right. And when we were in the thick of things, I would take the radio, put it on my back, and hand him the microphone. I called it a sniper check to see if where we were going.
Oh yeah, right. All right.
But,
You're sitting down.
a lot of fun, a lot of training in my case. 21 years of training and never coming off the bench and getting in the game. I was okay with that.
Yeah.
But you had the opportunity to actually be in country for a while. I don't know any of your stories can.
I mean, my origin story is not like Jim's. I didn't get a card in the mail. Honestly, the recruiter showed up, and I really just wanted to get out of the house. And I always said if I waited the extra week, I would have been in the Air Force instead, because I didn't even listen to his presentation. The Army guy already had me down at he had me down at recruiting right away. My parents didn't even know. I just wanted to get out of the house, and not that they were bad people at all. They just when you're the eldest and you're doing all the driving and you're expected to do more. You're like freedom tastes great suddenly. Not knowing that there was a war going on, nothing about patriotism or college. I just wanted out. And the guy's like, we'll take you in June. And so it was close to graduation. I was like, yeah, sure. I'll do that. The one least likely in the family to ever go in the military is the one that's going. So, and I didn't walk, I ran. I did my duck waddle, of course, with a bunch of other guys in their underwear. And you're wondering, is this a psychological test or, is this, a selection process? Which duck is the best?
Where?
Yeah. There's always the one guy there saying everyone quack while you're doing it. So it's like the first introduction to basic training. Yeah. Insulting you for another 9 weeks after the fact.
Yeah.
I did all the training. I went to Fort Jackson. I stayed there for basic and AIT at the same time. So I did chaplain assistant training down there, which was fun. Basics, the normal things. You've heard people talk about it. Gas chamber. Flap your arms, try not to puke. Chili Mac Road. But
real quick on the gas chamber. Growing up on a farm in Nebraska, we had anhydrous ammonia around us all the time, and I had built up a natural immunity to CS, to tear gas.
No kidding.
So when I was in basic training and I took off the mask, I'm like, what's the big deal?
Hi, Sarge.
Yeah.
Later on, when I was a senior drill instructor at the Officer Candidate School, we had so much fun with that. I would walk into the gas chamber and they'd be in there and I'd take my mask off. I'm like, there's nothing even in the air, guys. Just go and take your mask off. So it wasn't like take your mask off, name, rank, and social security number. They just like, oh, what's going on? And I'll run out.
We had a guy that he was from Colombia or something, another country. They would gas him as children, and he would actually sing in there.
Yeah,
he was like say, he's like, this is a great day. Like, do Elvis for us. It's like, until we all get out, let me sing. He was the last guy in. He volunteered for it, so it's but he wouldn't affect him whatsoever. The rest of us have snot, and we're just dying in there. And of course, they tried to feed you chili mac right before because they knew what's going to happen. Good old Army. Nothing like psychological testing, because then every day they're like, "Do you want to get out yet?" And at that point, you're too invested. You're like, "No, I got to see how this ends." Yeah. So, and again, they're not telling you that you can go straight to war right afterwards, because they say, "Hey, this is good. You're going to get paid. You're getting paid peanuts," but you don't know it yet because you're not allowed to look at anything outside of what's in your barracks. Yeah. But and by the way, anyone looking at this, don't Google what they say you're getting paid. It's a lie. You're doing it for patriotism or whatever the news tells you. But so after that, I went to Illesheim, Germany, actually, with 66 Cav. I got there for about 2 weeks. They were already gone. And so they said, great, welcome. Now get out. Go catch up to your unit. And it took them a while to figure out where we were going because they were kind of traveling. But they ended up in Balad, actually. And that was fun. It was LSA Anaconda, but was there before the Air Force got there and made it a resort. So we actually didn't have showers. Our shower was a 95-degree bucket in the heat that felt like ice. So, and you punctured a small hole and you made it a shower head. So this is before Amazon, when you can actually buy an actual shower head that had a bag attached to it. So, Army Corps engineers, I love you dearly, but you were not quick enough. So, but it was fun. You get out there and you just, have every once in a while a couple, guys trying to lob mortars over in trucks, and most of the time they don't hit their mark, but sometimes they do. And you see all the Apaches flying off, and okay, well, since they're in the air, we're okay now. But nerve wracking because I was as chaplain assistant. They tried not to have me on guard duty where you do patrolling at night, but every once in a while I got on there, mainly because I was like, well, I probably should. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be hated as the new guy. So, right. I mean, you don't want to say it's like, well, the chaplain said no. It's like that doesn't seem like one of those religious, equivalents that you can actually use as a private. So, it's like, well, the chaplain was a captain, but the commander as a colonel said, go do it. So, and the first sergeant can scream his head off all you want. And as long as you do push-ups, I'm sure you're fine. So, but I did that, and it's just, and no injuries. I mean, had a small surgery out there, but nothing, life, just they had to get done. But I didn't get injured, so I can't top you, buddy. So, I mean,
he's a frag mag.
He is. I mean, my question is, are you still carrying some of that with you? Do you go through metal detectors? Like, all right, sir, hold on.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have to do the glove? Are you the guy that's off to the side? Reciting some of your prayers.
Check out. One of the things I really believe when it comes to the whole military thing, every one of us, whether drafted or enlisted, had to do the same thing. That's raise your hand up and swear that you would protect the country and the Constitution. And that's why when I hear guys talk about military stuff, a lot of the guys will say, man, I wish I could have gone to combat. Oh, I'd like to have a CID, all this and all that, and feel a little remorse, and they don't need to. Because you don't have any control.
Right.
Ultimately, you don't have any control. What you do, you just do what you're told.
Right.
And you're all part of a team.
Right.
Oh, right. And you don't know where you're going to go or what you're going to do often. And there was some people I knew. They went into the military. Then they were going to re-up, and they were younger vets. And one decided he wanted to be a Marine. And his friend said, no, I'll go in the Air Force. So he went in the Air Force because he thought it'd be safer and all of that. Or I think it was Afghanistan they were at, and a lot of movement between one fob and another, etc. And so it turned out that the guy that chose the Air Force was on convoys all the time with IEDs as president. The Marine was assigned to the office as a clerk. And even though it was
seems like a role reversal there.
He was in country, but he was well protected.
Yeah.
So you never know. You respect the decision.
The job.
We had a young chaplain by the name of Chaplain Guy. Chaplain Guy was a captain, so he was the captain guy. So we had a lot of fun. When the candidates would go out for their defensive perimeter, their bivouac, call it what you want, the chaplain always slept with the M60 gunner. He would go out there and he would take the M60 assistant gunner's sleep bag, and he'd sleep during night defense with the M60. It's just what he always did. And I'd known him for quite a while. Well, I would always make a challenge to the candidates that in the middle of the night, I am going to come out, I am going to break your perimeter and capture you, and you're not even going to know I'm there till it's over. And they would always be like, we take that challenge, sure. And, they're all, well, Captain Mayberry was a professor of political science. He was not an infantry guy.
Yeah.
He was part of the staff at the academy.
Oh.
And he was like, can I go out with you tonight? I'm like, sure, let's go. He said, I'll wake you up around 2:00. So 2 a.m., I woke him up and we slept in the same tent and I had the light on. He goes, those aren't your boots. What are those? I go, moccasins. He goes, why are you wearing moccasins? Because I grew up in Nebraska and moccasins are a whole lot quieter than those combat boots. He goes, oh yeah, that makes sense. He goes, what's in the box? I said, night vision device. What do you do with that? You can see at night.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you got some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I would always take the M60 position first because you take out the most casualty producing weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take out the M60 gunner, and I'm going to take out the gunner, but I want you to take the assistant gunner. And I said, you're going to take this. And I gave him a red magic marker. And he said, after I've taken out the gunner, I want you to go over. The assistant gunner will be sleeping in his bag. I want you to straddle him, take that red marker and make a slash across his throat and ask him the question, do you know what woke you up? I just slashed your throat, which is out of the movie Island if you've never seen it. But so we get out there and the 60 gunner was good. I mean, I'm sneaking up in my moccasins and he's laying out, he's sights out, he's doing his job. But then at one point I'd gotten about 4 feet away from him and he leaned back to stretch and he found my walking stick, the point of it right at the base of his throat. And he's like, oh, sir. And I'm like, sorry, son. I said, I've got to keep my promises. I go, Captain Mayberry, you want to do your job? And he goes over and he goes down and he does it. And the chaplain sits up and he goes, who's that? Randy, is that you? And he goes, who is that? This is Chaplain Guy. I go, you just killed the chaplain. But the chaplain walked around because it was an indelible marker.
Yeah.
So for the rest of the camp, he walked around with a red mark across his neck. So, yeah. And Captain Mayberry was embarrassed.
Well, I mean, come on, you did something that could send you to hell.
That's true. Take out the chaplain.
Chaplains are fun in combat, to be honest. I mean, it's the only job, it wasn't a promise, but, like a bonus for me. But like they said, hey, it's one of the few jobs you could throw an officer in the mud. Like, okay, why would I want to before you join in? And you get there, like, okay, that's a plus. It's like they can't carry weapons. So if they're going somewhere in combat and they're making a bad decision, you can drag them away from the situation. You have to. It's quite fun to do. I never had to do it. I wish I could have. Sometimes.
Why were they not allowed to have a weapon?
No, they're non-combatants according to the Geneva Convention, if I'm not mistaken. So they actually can't even carry knives. So if they do it, I guess they're in violation. I don't know. Someone fact check me, please.
So
But,
they have printed over their helmet or whatever.
No, I've never seen. They have like the marker, like their rank is like because back then it was they had the cross here. I think the rank was on one side and the cross because we still had the when you got promoted, you got your they jammed it in you, but they got rid of that soon after.
Blood wings.
Yeah, you got your blood wings. It was unique because you could actually, it was just you two. It was the chaplain assistant and the chaplain, and the chaplain was the officer, but they were unique. They weren't in a command position in a sense. I mean, if they had that, but you were their assignment. Like they got home mostly because of you, hopefully, if you did your job right.
So what else did you have to do in that position?
I mean, you were the eyes and ears for the chaplain. The unit ministry team is what they called it, and I think they still do. You're there to, you got your finger on the pulse because, like, you're enlisted, so you're with the guys that are in the trenches. You're not like, you're not in the tents with the nice, food or the better MREs. But you're in there with the trenches with them. You're training with them. You're working out. You are dining with them. You hear stuff. You're looking for people getting overstressed. Like in combat, you're looking for someone who might lose it. You have the ability to hear counsel to kind of keep confidentiality, to kind of let them de-stress. You can be, in essence, their non-official priest. You're not religious whatsoever. You don't have to be, but you have confidentiality. You have, as long as it does not violate the law, by law, you have to keep that under wraps. So, absolutely, it's fun. It's a fun opportunity. Not for everyone.
For me, they were
Right.
the voice of reason.
Oh, I hope so.
And that was you can't imagine, but there's a lot of emotion going on in the midst of conflict, and there's a lot of anxiety. depression, PTSD, a lot of things going on. And that chaplain assistant, that chaplain, they're the ones who have to be able to read the body language, read the soldier, and then sometimes just sit down, not say a word, but just be there. They were always, as a company commander, when I first took over a company, the first thing I did was have the unit pray.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, the chaplain's not here. He goes, no, God is. Last time we checked, there's no atheists in a fighting position.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing from my perspective, just going through it, the amount of people that were not willing to talk to the chaplain. I mean, no matter what the rank, some people just didn't want to, and it had nothing to do that they were a chaplain. It's just that maybe they just weren't comfortable with the person or just the concept of it, but they were comfortable talking to me, knowing that they could have that confidentiality, which, to be fair, I still think we should have it out in the civilian world too, because, you know, we call them therapists or pastors or something, but it's like, you know, sometimes it's just having that person that listens and never responds, or knowing full that if you say it and it doesn't break a law, they have to keep it under wraps.
Sure.
I mean, to me, it came in handy a lot to get people to not do something stupid over a 4-day weekend. You know, it's like, hey, we talked. I'm not going to say anything out loud, but let's not repeat that. You know, like maybe not go to France and do the same thing you did last time. Please.
When we were in the green room, we were talking about the nicknames from the first show. I was a sheik.
Yeah.
I was a sheik because I wore a headgear that looked like a sheik and broke up the thing. My sergeant's platoon sergeant was War Daddy, but then I had Boom Boom, the Grizz, and Candyman. Candyman was a sergeant by the name of Dan Doherty, and as I'm getting to know each of them, and I would go around with their platoons, their communication style was one thing I was looking for. And as I'm walking around with the Candyman the first time, not knowing why they called him that, he goes up to the first guy, asks him a few questions, reaches in his bag, pulls out a green M&M and hands it to him. The guy smiles. Oh, that was pretty cool.
Just a single M&M?
Just a single M&M.
That cheap guy.
Get to the next one, he hands him a yellow M&M. I'm like, and that guy was just kind of like, The next one got a red M&M. And that guy put his head down, his shoulders, and walked away. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I asked him, he said, well, green means they're good to go. Yellow means they got some things to work on, but they're not doing too bad. And red is they need to stop and analyze and start over. I go, well, then what's a brown M&M? He says, you don't want to know. I've only got one of those for
Shower. Yeah.
So he checked the color before he passed it out.
Yeah.
It wasn't just random.
No,
Oh,
those are-
too bad for you.
It
How do you
wasn't
keep
red.
them whole in his pocket, though?
I don't
I
know.
know they say they don't melt, but they
It's
do.
mushed.
He had a ammo pouch on
Okay,
the side
okay, all right.
that he would put them in a little plastic bag.
So I learned it from personal experience. We actually did hand it. I'm like, all right, here's your mush. Sorry. Merry Christmas.
So yeah, it is. And you talked about leadership of a guy, and really that's what the military is all about. It is the finest leadership organization in the world, and it starts right at basic training and getting to understand. And when you come out to civilian world, as a company commander, I'd throw out my list of tasks, and I'd walk away knowing when I came back they'd be done.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in the civilian world, as a plant manager, I'd throw out the tasks, and I'd come back and they'd be doing something else. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Well, Frank came out. Who's Frank?
Yeah.
Well, Frank's head of sales, and he got a call from a customer, and Frank came out. No, Frank didn't come out into this is my territory out here. Frank comes to me.
Yes.
Frank comes to me, and we agree that there needs to be a change. We can do that. But it was such a headache trying to just do the job.
Mhm.
It's not that hard. And in the military, you learn that.
Yes.
And I talk to employers and potential employers all the time, and they said if they're a veteran, they have that box checked. It doesn't matter what their other skills are. Take that veteran because he can learn anything you teach him.
Mhm.
But the character he will bring to your organization will be beyond reproach. In most cases, now there are those who slip through the crack occasionally, but
Very few and far between, though.
yeah. But if you've gone through basic AIT, if you've spent any time, you've got that character. I mean, you probably saw what it did for your son when he came home from
Yes.
this boot camp in Marines.
It's boot camp.
Boot camp, but you sent off a boy and you got back a man. That's sometimes kind of hard to digest.
Yeah, I think that's what made even the whole graduation so amazing because of the whole transformation.
You sent this slouching teenager in, and all of a sudden you got this.
Yeah.
You got something on your mind.
Yeah, I do. When I hear conversations like this, I think I would really respect the possibility, if it could work out, that there would be compulsory 2-year service responsibility. Because we are training, we need to take raising the next generation a lot serious. For young people, we went through the Boy Scout thing with my kids. And one of my sons is an Eagle Scout. And we really respected, on my honor, do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout law. And every week we would do that. Well, things have changed a bit. And that beautiful organization, in my opinion, is going in the wrong direction. But the idea of working as a team, trying to get things done, a development of leadership, and at every level. You may go in as a private or less, and you come out with some responsibility that develops something in you. Our kids need that.
Our adults need that. Our politicians need that. We don't talk politics here, but I'm just saying, there's been a disconnect. The pandemic isn't the cause, but the pandemic didn't help us a lot. Where the personal interaction went down to a Zoom call. I had a guy connect with me on my calendar the other day, and it was a Zoom call, and so okay, and we're talking. We're like, "Where do you live?" He's like, "Fox Lake." I'm in Johnsburg. We're 5 minutes. Why are we talking on Zoom? Let's sit down for a cup of coffee. And I'm working with a gentleman out of Israel with the Israeli Defense Department. That needs a Zoom call. And I'm glad we have that technology. But it's getting back into the same room face to face. I call it 98.6 marketing. That's where my 98.6 is in your 98.6. And we're actually eye to eye, face to face. Just, in this room, I think that's where we get to know each other.
Sure.
We go through basic, and we meet a bunch of people that we've never met before in our life. And within 96 hours, we're best friends. But at the other end of that, we spend all this time, the time you spent in Vietnam, the time you spent, and then all of a sudden one day you've gone your separate directions. It's like it's a couple of years go by. And like, hey, I wonder what Joe's doing, and you give him a call, and it's like you're right back in that moment.
Yeah.
Right. That time has elapsed because you've got these shared experiences of the United States military, and too few of our population as a percentage. What is it? 2%, 2 to 3% of our population serves in the military. But there's such, what you say, there's really a degree of maturity that happens that every young man and woman could use. One of my granddaughters just went to the Air Force boot camp. She just graduated her advanced training, and the difference, I'm in shock and awe every time I meet a young person when they come back, and they walk out, they go away a baby, and they come away an adult. Like, oh, how did I miss that? Well, it's such a quick transformation. So,
Thinking about leadership, what was one of the best teams that you were on?
One of the best teams?
Yeah.
You mean in the military?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Yeah.
My whole unit. One of the things about a unit that has a sense of specialty that, jumping out of an airplane is pretty dumb. But once you learn how,
You got a parachute. It's not that dumb.
But man, you eat it up. You want to be that because you want to. That's why people go to special forces. That's why people want to be a ranger. That's why people just want something extra. It's hard to explain the whole gung ho thing. But our unit was tight. We didn't have the racial issues of some of the other units. We were a small unit. It was basically 4 battalions. but we were separate in that we could do everything a military unit could do, and we didn't need other choppers. We didn't need other artillery. Everything that we needed, because Westmoreland put together an Army unit that needed in 1975, not 75, but in 65, a unit that could be like moved anywhere and be complete. And so it's only 4 battalions, and it was the 173rd. And we felt that respect and responsibility. But we respected one another, either because we were all nuts together or whatever. But the thing that really impressed me when the fellow stepped on something that blew up, and I was just in front of him. And then of course, we hit the ground scrambling off the hill. And I looked back after things were calm, and all the attention that was given to this fellow trooper, the company commander, the medic, the chopper's going to be coming in. Immediately, as soon as something happens, you respond out of instinct.
Mhm.
You don't have time to think about anything, however. And so the training that we had helped to bind us together. Now, in general, want to hear a little psychological thing? It has been found. You've heard of the Band of Brothers thing?
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. It has been found that when people are in trauma together or similar traumas, but especially if it's together, the brain releases oxytocin, which is a bonding neurotransmitter, or it's either that or an endorphin, but that brings people together. The same thing happens to a mother and her baby, same release. When people similar trauma situations within a family. And so this bonding is a chemical aspect to it. And that's why it's so strong. That's why people don't understand it, because they don't share that commonality of experience.
A little bit off the beaten path there, but Dave Rigby was one of the best soccer coaches I'd ever met. And Dave and I began coaching together. And every year we were the conference champions. And we're in this 4th year, and we're not conference champions. We're struggling. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And I worked, and practice started before I got there. And when I got there, Dave is screaming at these kids. He is just going ballistic. And Dave's a nice guy. And I said, he's a good, quiet, calm coach. And I'm like, Dave, what are you doing? I'm trying to get out to pull him down. And finally says, you get off my soccer field and don't come back until you're ready to represent Johnsburg soccer the way it's supposed to be. And I'm like, oh my God, he's going crazy. I'm going to have to, he turns around with the biggest smile on his face. I'm like, what was that all about? And he goes, sometimes for a lack of conflict, we have to create it.
Yeah.
Because in conflict, a bond is created, just like you're talking about. Well, the previous 3 years, we had an athlete die from a car accident. We had an athlete die from cancer. We had a teacher who also died from cancer. So each of those years, there was conflict that brought people together. This year, there was nothing. It's a nice, quiet year. So he's like, we're going to have to create conflict. And we're getting into the last 5 minutes. I just got the 5-minute signal from the producing session out there. So any last comments that you guys would like to?
Drill instructors do that.
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole purpose.
creating chaos.
I graduate of the drill instructor school. That's our whole purpose.
I had already had 4 years of school before I went to Moody Bible Institute, and went to a junior college, so I forgot what.
Create conflict. Drill instructors
Yeah,
create conflict.
right. The drill instructor. Well, I was educated by the time I was in basic training, and so because of that, I had a lot of questions. So I would ask why all the time to Drill Sergeant Taylor at Fort Bragg. I said, well, that makes no sense. Why are we doing that? Get out and knock them out. I did more push-ups until I finally realized there's a game being played here. I got to cooperate.
But you got really strong.
Yeah, it was helpful.
How about you, Nick? I mean,
I'd say honestly, parents play the same game, and the military just made it a lot easier for us, honestly. So, no, but to the point, it's it is a game that's being played. It never stops. You know, like even in the civilian life, when you transition, you're, you know, like you said, you expect to get the job done, but then they're playing their own game, but you're like, well, I'm here to play as a team. And it's just like, you know, and that's kind of where the disconnect comes with a lot of veterans, is that team camaraderie disappears the minute you leave.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, it's amazing to me, and also dumbfounding that people haven't caught on that we will get the job done.
But we
It's
can
pretty
rebuild
cool.
that. I mean, that's why
absolutely.
corporate America spends millions of dollars every year on team building
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah.
And we have one of the best in the world if you're looking for it through combat brain training. Drew always wants me to close down with something. So this,
You know what? I'm
Go.
going to say something just
Go.
really quick.
say it.
I just, because we have a gift for the veterans for being on the show. So today's guest gift was provided by Nick's Pizza and Pub. So go ahead and share your story.
Right.
I was a plant manager, and I put in a 5-week notice to leave and join Edward Jones as a financial planner on September 10th, 2001. The next day, the Twin Towers went down. On the first anniversary of 9/11, a client called me and said, would you read a poem today for the first Memorial Day of 9/11? I said, yes, I would, but could you get me a copy of it? She said, well, I haven't found it yet. I said, well, what are you looking for? I'll help you find it. She says, I want something that says America's at its best when things are at their worst. I said, stop right there. I said, do you trust me? She said, yes. And I hung up, and I called her back a half hour later, and I read this to her. It says, the king was overtaxing his subjects far away. Things were really getting ugly until that fateful day when the colonists dressed as Indians descended upon the ships and tossed the tea into the sea as a cry rose from their lips. You can no longer overtax us. We have no more to give. So take your laws and leave our land. We choose to govern where we live. Things had gotten bad before, but this time was a first that saw America at its best when things were at their worst. And it started a tradition that has affected all Americans from then until today. Every time we get complacent and start bickering among ourselves, someone comes and tries to break us, to cast our paradise into hell. But every time they do it, they find out, like the rest, it's when things are at their worst that America is at its best. Now, this latest interruption that is known as 9/11, as they toppled the Twin Towers and sent thousands into heaven, is just one more reminder to those beyond our shore that we can be your greatest friend, or you can be no more. So take this as a warning. Those who would put us to the test, if you want to try to break us, you will find America and Americans at their best. She said, where'd you find that? I said, I just wrote it. But there's a lot of truth to that. You know, we've gone through our struggles, we've gone through our things, but we are at a point right now, I think, where America is starting to come back together. And I think we're at a point that the world will see that when things were at their worst, America is at its best. So thank you for tuning in, everyone. Chris, thanks for hosting and putting this whole idea together. Thanks for being here, guys. And Drew and Nick, thanks for producing and keeping us on the right track here. So. God
and
bless
like
everyone.
it and share it and
Like
all
it
that.
and share it, subscribe, share, subscribe, share. YouTube, Facebook, we're all over the place. You have to not want to find us to not find us. So go find us and share us. So Roger that. Chronicles out.
Thank you.